Now, something important for you in the industry. A government, these all, I'm not saying it, Krishna Varnasuri is not saying it, the constitution is saying it. A government exercising sovereign power of the people must ensure, this is what this book says. When we bought it in law school in 1998-90, it was about 20 rupees. I suggest, I don't think it will have gone more than 50 or 90 now. I suggest everyone in the country actually should have one of these at home. A constitution, not that expensive. It says, as of right, the government must ensure these things when exercising sovereign power. That every citizen is entitled to the freedom to engage in any lawful occupation or profession or enterprise. Freedom. Article 27(2)(d). The rapid development of the country is made by public and private economic activity. Article 27(7). That the government must eliminate economic and social privilege and disparity, exploitation of man by man or man by the state. Promulgators of the 1978 Second Republican Constitution have said it. Article 27(8). State shall ensure the operation of an economic system that does not result in concentration of wealth and means of production. That may not come as good news for some of you, but that is what the Constitution is intended. And then, in all of this, there is something called a fundamental in this. Article 12. Equal protection and equality before the law. Everyone in Sri Lanka, from the lowest to the highest, has to be equal before the law. And what does that equality entail? That everyone has a chance to defend him or herself. That everyone is told what the charges are before them. That everyone is presumed, for last time I checked, except for certain countries, for very good reason perhaps, like I think the Republic of China, there is a presumption of guilt. But the presumption of innocence operates in Sri Lanka. That one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. For the simple reason that our system of governance follows the tradition that negative cannot be asked to prove that you are not guilty. It is someone who says that you're guilty who must prove that you're guilty. You don't have to prove anything. The burden is on the person who's saying you did something to say that you've done it. Because I can't suddenly come to you and say, you have done this. No, now why don't you say that you haven't done it? Because if I don't know what this fellow is saying, how do I prove that I haven't done it? So the burden of proving someone guilty lies in a democratic system of ours in the person who's bringing the charges. Now these are all the equality provisions before the law that the Constitution guarantees to every citizen in Sri Lanka, whoever they may be. So, when the law that I just spoke of is not being applied equally or not being applied at all, this is why it becomes important to you. What do people do, or what did people used to do, is to go before the institution exercising the judicial power and say, I'm not being treated equally. Or the production in the country is not being exploited in a manner that is best fit for the country. Or I tendered for this particular project. Now at the moment we have several tender cases in the Supreme Court. I really don't know why, but not for any other reason, but I think that commerce and industry must necessarily be settled outside the court system. Anyway, that's a different subject. But say I tendered for this, so did so and so, so did so and so. We were guaranteed, or we were said to be the best from the technical evaluation committee. We didn't get the tender, so and so got it. How did that happen? So we have several issues like that. That is all to do with your equal protection of the law. Is the government then subject to law? There was a chap called Machiavelli who wrote this nice book called The Prince in the 16th century, who identified this power of governance and said that power was a sole purpose of politics was to gain and increase political power. Political power. And then Jean Bodin, or Bodin as we were told in university, but then later on we realized the man is actually Bodin, said that he gave a name for this power, and he said it was sovereignty, which later on Professor Dicey and Baron Montesquieu split it. You don't need to worry about the details of it. I am just bringing this in to show that there are two ways of thinking about this political power in the world. Now people like Professor Dicey, typically looking at the English constitution, see that there is a supremacy of a parliament. Why? We must understand why. Because as I said before, in the UK there is a monarch that holds sovereign power. So over history, when people realized that the monarch was doing too many things that they didn't like, They entered an agreement with that monarch and said, okay, you become royal and you run around with your cloaks and robes and all that, but we are going to build the institution called the parliament. And we are going to let them make laws for us, not you, and that is going to be supreme. So, in countries where there is a monarch, there is this concept called the supremacy of parliament. Why? Because it's a people's power that meant to override the power of the king. So as I said, in Sri Lanka before, we don't have a king, we have made our laws, we have a constitution. What we have here is what is called a constitutional supremacy. In our country, the constitution is supreme. Not any monarch, not any parliament, not anyone else. It is a constitution and the people who have promulgated the constitution that's supreme. Therefore, there cannot be a supremacy of any one of those institutions to which the people have given power to. I hope I haven't gone too fast with that. Right. So, then, why did all this happen? So, why did, as I said, why did ordinary corporate lawyers who are usually stuck in a courtroom take to the streets suddenly? Why did all this happen? Because we take an oath of office. When we take oaths as an attorney at law, we swear on the Constitution that we shall do our best to protect and preserve the Constitution of this Republic, which by implication means the rights of the people of this country, and that we will not allow that constitutional supremacy to be overridden by any other source of power or authority. So if we believe that it is a constitution that's supreme in the country, when that constitution is attempted to be overridden by any power, doesn't matter whom, lawyers and judges have a duty to make sure that that doesn't happen, because that is the last bastion of hope that an ordinary thinking man has between what is right and what is wrong. Because there may be so many who are tempted. If you feel that the judicial power they have vested in one institution is being eroded, or its independence being eroded, who may be tempted to think, oh well, there is no point in going to court anymore. There is no point in going to justice anymore. What does that do to the fabric of what we have envisaged in the Constitution? That is why lawyers from all spectrums, judges from all areas, with maybe various, I'm sure you have seen on the news, there were various different political ideas in these sets of lawyers, but still, they all got on the street. Why? Because they felt this judiciary that was supposed to be independent, it is not the person, once again don't get me wrong, not the person A, B or C. If someone has done wrong, that someone must answer charges, that someone must be given due process. But you cannot attempt to judge anyone beyond the process. So how did this, what happened, become unlawful? Quickly explain. Now in the 1978 Constitution, we have what is called a classic separation of powers. That's what Professor Dicey's and Montesquieu's diverging views that I told you about. Professor Dicey speaks of a supremacy of parliament, but Montesquieu said that these three powers of government, the legislative, executive and judicial powers, must necessarily be separated. The moment there is a concentration of one or more of these powers on one institution, you are going to create a dictator. So judicial powers must be separated, legislative powers must be separated, executive powers must be separated. They shouldn't be concentrated on one. So what happens when the legislature, which is the parliament, tries to exercise judicial power? That is the danger that the lawyers and the judges saw. And then Article 4C says very clearly, the Constitution, we have another copy from one interested in reading, that all judicial power of the Republic shall be exercised through courts, through tribunals, etc. Except, there's one proviso, when it comes to powers of parliamentary privileges and immunities of members of parliament, where they are allowed to exercise that power by themselves. Now we, the majority was of the opinion that this particular impeachment of a Chief Justice was not such a power that related to members of parliament. That is what we felt. And then the Supreme Court thereafter and the Court of Appeal upheld these objections. So how does an impeachment of a judge operate?